Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be using some stamps from Ink Blot Shop, the Happy Mail background, the Snow Kids, and then the Sending Love set. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. So these cards I actually made a while ago when I was trying to get out of my, I have no mojo. And so I pretty much just went through stamps that I had and I just pulled out ones that I had some idea for. And I didn't put any pressure on myself to make for a deadline or make for, using a specific brand or anything. I just went through my stamps and pulled out something that I really loved. And I know that probably sounds a little bit crazy, but when you work for a bunch of different people, you don't always have that luxury. Not that I don't work for anybody who stamps that I don't love regularly. That's just not my style. But Tiffany, who's a friend of mine, I don't work for her. She doesn't have people who work for her as far as I know. But she does make really cute, amazing stamps. And so I had purchased these quite a while back and just hadn't gotten around to using them. So here I stamped the image of this little paper airplane, which is adorable and super cute for a little Valentine. And then in addition to it, it has like an extra swirl that you can add. Or use by itself, but I decided to combine them. So it was kind of going off the side of the page. And then I wanted to just do a really simple background. Clean and simple is where I'm comfortable. And for some people that means a lot of white space. But your white space doesn't have to be white. So my card does have quite a bit of white space. I'm just going to make it blue, if that makes sense. So I'm just going over it with some Salty Ocean after I masked my paper airplane, and then I'm just going to add that blueprint sketch to kind of the left and right hand sides to really highlight the pathway of this little paper airplane. And I just thought that these were I'm drawn to things I can color, simple cute images that I can kind of make a scene out of. I like using stamps for things different than what they're intended for. So when I pulled these out, I had some ideas of what I wanted to do with them. It didn't completely come to fruition, but that's okay because the point was really just the playing. When I struggle with my mojo, that's usually what will help me kind of get back in the swing of things, is just going through finding something that I am drawn to, that I really love, and then just playing with it. No expectations on myself, no pressure on myself, just kind of seeing what I can make with the items that I've pulled out. And sometimes, over the years, different companies, different people have sent me things, and I love small businesses. I love the people in this crafting industry, and I want to use their product, and I want to bring them business, and I want to introduce you guys to these wonderful companies who are run by these amazing people. But sometimes I just can't make it work for me, and that's okay. Sometimes it just doesn't suit my style, or whatever kind of situation I'm in currently. Sometimes I'm more scene card, sometimes I'm more clean and simple, sometimes I'm watercolor, sometimes I'm Copic, you know what I'm saying. So here, I love all things shimmery. Again, when I'm playing with a card, I'm certainly not going to deny myself the things that I love to add to a card, so Perfect Pearls it is. So I did add some splatters of that to the background. You can see that I am getting the Distress ink on the, it's definitely in that portion of the Perfect Pearls, but you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to color it at all. And then once it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and remove my mask. That was a terrible edit on my part. Did you see how we just jumped in there? I'm sorry. I edited this while I was at work. So in order to color the paper airplane, I just wanted it white. I just was keeping it super simple. I wanted to do white with red hearts. If you are going to color any object white, you want to do that first to make sure you get all your white shading out of the way, because if I color these hearts red first and then put that C1 over it, I will for sure drag my red into my white. I just will. It's a thing that will happen. So if you are coloring an object white, do that first before you start adding any of your other colors. And you're going to see here, it's probably going to look a little bit gray. First of all, alcohol markers always look darker when they're wet, but anything you're coloring white will look more gray until you start to build up the colors around it. So I went back in with my darkest color, which is a C5, and just kind of like bolstered up that middle fold. Couldn't think of the word fold. Then I just went in, because this is so tiny, I just went in with one color. There's no point in pretending like I was going to be able to do multiple colors, and honestly, the card really didn't need it. So I just went in with my R29, and you can see, like, as we're adding this, the image starts to look more white and less gray, just because it has another color to contrast with. I kind of, when I stamped my, what are those called? Whirly lines? Wind lines? Swoopy lines? I'm not sure. When I stamped that thing, it was a little bit off center. Like, it didn't perfectly match up with the other lines, but that's okay because I'm going to fix it with a pen. Here, I'm just going to stamp down my sentiment. Now, these would be adorable Valentine's Day cards, so if you need something today, like, oh, I forgot, or like, my wife or my husband said we weren't going to celebrate, and then they showed up with a card or some candy or something, and I'm ill-prepared. This is a super fast one that you could totally knock out. But I'm just going to go with the sending love sentiment, so I can pretty much use it anytime that I wanted to. Plus, it's a really good one since we're still all in the middle of this gigantic, mess of COVID, that you could just send to a friend that's super cute with the little paper airplane. So I am going to go in, like I said, with a pen and just kind of fill in those lines. And then also, because I love, again, sparkles, Stardust stickles are my favorite. I'm not going to pretend like they're not. I do have other color stickles, but I very rarely ever use them. Stardust stickles take on the color that is of whatever's underneath them, so it pretty much just suits me just fine. So at this point, I've already done what I could do with the lines. I am just going to take little dots of these Stardust stickles and go over each individual line, kind of like it's spreading glitter as it's flying through the air, which I think is super cute. And then that one's done. Like, it was super, super easy. This one, now remember I said I really enjoy using stamps for something different than what they're intended. So in the Sending Smile set, it has these little envelopes that are adorable. And so my original thought was that I was going to do the little snow boy and the little snow girl as like Valentines, like him giving her this Valentine. But the reality of the situation was they were just too big, and I wasn't willing to do a slimline card. I just wasn't. So what I'm going to do instead is just use the little boy. So I stamped down my Valentine, and then I stamped a mask for it. I'm going to trim that out, and you want to go right up to the black line so there's no gapping. And then I put that in place. Now I'm going to put my little boy in place, and he is holding a snowball. But I am not, because that mask is there, I'm not even going to stamp that snowball on the card. It's going to completely disappear behind this Valentine so that he appears to be holding this card instead of a snowball. This is just one of the ways that you can kind of mess around with your stamps and turn them into something different, which I think is adorable and fun and really gives you just more bang for your buck, and I'm all about that. So my phone's vibrating. I don't know if you could hear that or not. My apologies. So now I have dark nail polish on, so I'm trying to get it up with my little tool. Like here, you can see his hand. He's holding his little Valentine. There's no snowball to be seen. And I am just going to go right into the coloring. Again, I am coloring this little envelope white, and I'm going to do that first before I color my heart any kind of color at all. And then we're just going to go through the coloring like we normally would, and that's about that. So my phone is vibrating because my dear sweet husband, you guys are listening to this when it's Valentine's Day, but I am recording it Saturday night and Sunday morning, and he's stuck at work. That's just, it's just what happens when you marry somebody who's a first responder. So there's your warning about marrying somebody who has a job that works odd hours. I'm kidding. I also have a job that works odd hours, and so our schedules work out most of the time. It does stink that I probably really won't get to see him, because even though Like, he'll get off work in the morning, he'll come home, he'll catch a couple hours of sleep, and then he'll turn around and go back to work. So I won't see him until tomorrow night, but it is what it is. Note this little puffball. So I started doing like the little like half moons to give it some texture. And then I decided I was going to shade it first. I'm still going to go back and do the little half moons to give it some texture. But this is one of those ones where like you're very limited by the black outline. Okay. So if you do the little puffball and you want it to look like it's puffy, it's challenging to do with a black line. So there's a little trick to get to make it look fluffy. So we're going to come back to that, but just hang tight. I know it looks weird now, but it won't look weird forever. So we don't, as I've told you guys before, we don't really celebrate Valentine's Day. I do pick up Peanut like a couple of little things, and actually that Hero Arts card I did a while back with the little fishes that light up, that's his Valentine's Day card. And then I just picked him up some, like he really, he calls the Lindor chocolates the good chocolates, because those are my chocolates, and I hide them on top of the refrigerator, and I am not ashamed because my child does not want for any sort of sweet or snack or whatever, and those are mine. So they had some like in a little heart package, so I picked him up those. I got him the gum that he likes, and what else? There was something else. I debated about getting him a stuffed animal, but like he's gonna be 8, and so he's kind of not really, doesn't really do the whole stuffed animal thing as much anymore. He has one that he sleeps with that actually came from Eric. It's what's his name? He's it's like embroidered on his foot. It's like Noble or Honor or something like that. But Nathan calls him Brown Eye. I'll just leave that there for you. Because he has a patch over his eye, like a patch of color. So that's what he calls him. And that's the only one he really ever sleeps with. But all the other stuffed animals are just like kind of things we're outgrowing. So I thought about getting him a stuffed animal, but then I just figured I would end up donating it to the Salvation Army here in the next year or two. So I opted for candy and gum because that seemed like a better choice. As far as coloring, my little guy here, obviously his scarf is all the way up over his face, so he's going to have quite a bit of shading. I mostly left the area around his eyes as the lightest, and then because he is standing outside, you know, he's all bundled up for winter, I am going to give him a little bit of a rosy cheek, but I'm just going to like do a little half moon where his cheeks would be underneath that scarf, just to give him a little bit of color. Everybody looks better with a little bit of color, right? And then I'm going to move on to the next color. I really didn't have a game plan as far as my colors. You know, I love blue. Me and blue go way back. We've been in a long-term serious relationship for quite some time. And I have a weird thing. I don't even know what it is. It's a weird thing where when I make cards that I know I'm going to photograph together, I want them to be complementary of each other. And so the first one that we did has that blue background. So I already knew that I wanted to put blue somewhere in this, so that they would photograph nicely. I know that's a thing. It's a weird thing, but I can't stop myself. I just cannot. And so that's how I did that. I am going to go back and add more white later on, but I didn't really know that I was going to do that at the time. That was not my original game plan. So yeah, so my baby's growing up and he probably don't want no stuffed animals no more, which is a little bit sad, but also understandable. I was a very independent child. I was not, like I didn't have something that I've carried my whole life. Like my middle sister has, a Blankie and Scrounger that it's like a dog. Oh, and she has a bear too, that she's had literally her entire life. The woman's 40 years old. I have no idea if she still sleeps with them because I haven't lived with her in quite some time. Maybe I'll ask her this weekend when I see her. But I was never that kid. That just was not for me. In fact, so I'm the youngest grandchild. All my cousins are older, and some of my cousins are significantly older than me. But the closest one to our age is my cousin Nicole, and she had, what was it? think she had a blanket. Kim doesn't have a blanket. She has a pillow. She has a pillow from when she was born. It's like a birth certificate pillow. It's not a blanket. She used to have a blanket, but we lost it on I-71 one day after she wouldn't stop waving it out the window, and my dad kept telling her she was going to lose it. She didn't pay no attention, and then sure enough, right out the window it went. She cried the whole way to the bowling alley, but my father wasn't going to be late for bowling, so, you know, such is life. I think Nicole had a blanket. So they are only a year apart. So Kim's 3 years older than me, and my cousin Nicole and her, I think, are only a year apart. But they were, you know, if you have siblings or cousins close to your age, you know what I'm talking about here. So they had been in the basement, and we had like that old school pit furniture, like where you could just, each individual piece was on its own and you could move it around however you needed to move it around. To create your own kind of layout. Well, it was originally in our family room, and then when my parents got new furniture, they moved it to the basement, and then that was, that's where we used it at, because the basement was kind of the kids' area. So they were down there, and somehow some sort of argument or fight or whatever ensued, and Nicole grabbed Kim's bear, and she bashed its face into the wood paneling that was in the basement and busted that bear's nose right off his face. I mean, just busted his nose up. It was not good. Kimberly loses her mind, absolutely loses her mind, because now her bear is noseless, like he needs rhinoplasty. And she grabs Nicole's blanket, runs upstairs, and puts it in the toilet. So then Nicole is losing her mind because now her blanket is in the toilet. My grandmother was able to sew the nose back onto the bear, and obviously they were able to wash the blanket from the toilet water. But yeah, funny story. I guess it's a good thing that I didn't have anything that I treasured that much, because clearly my sister and my cousin would have just destroyed it. But you know, that's the joy of growing up with people who are close in age to you. So back to the card real quick. So here I colored in the first two stripes, and my intention was to make the whole vest striped, but then I really liked the way that it looked with this, just the green and blue stripe. So then I decided I was going to go ahead and make the rest of the puffy vest white. So that's what I'm doing here. That is why I didn't do it to begin with. Like, I would have started with the white had I known, but I didn't. And this is the evolution of a card, people. This is just how this happens. So if that happens to you, where afterward you realize that, okay, well, now I want to color this thing white, just be really, really careful around the colors that you've already put down. Like a blue, probably not a big deal. A green, probably not a big deal. A red is a nightmare. A red is your worst enemy when you're coloring something white, because reds just bleed so much and they're so hard to clean up with the colorless blender. Also, a yellow too. A yellow will bleed. That one's a little bit easier to clean up, but it will bleed into your white. So anyway, that was a fun little story from my childhood that I completely forgot about. And this is how we end up with these weird, crazy story times that I don't even know that I'm going to tell you until, you know, we're here and I'm telling it to you. So I just picked, you know, the same colors to do his little hat, so that way there was a good balance of colors. And then you're also going to be able to see the little trick. Now, I will tell you that this card, like, the footage got cut off, and I apologize for that. When I was doing it, Peanut was in the craft room and started talking to me, and at some point, like, we paused but didn't pause. So I will show you the finished card and I will explain to you the things that I did, but there is no footage of it, so my apologies. Here I'm just going to ground this image. Tiffany actually has a really great set called Get Grounded that is a bunch of different grounds that you can put underneath it. I didn't have one that suited my purpose for snow, so I just opted for a pretty vague general shadow just so he wasn't floating in midair, just with the same grays that I've already been using. I ended up using her bubble letters, and that's what I'm doing here to do my sentiment. But this must be the point in which like my child started talking to me and I got sidetracked because there's no footage of me coloring it. I colored it with grays. I added some white highlights to really kind of play on that bubble letter portion of it. And then for the snowy little cap, see how the white is gone, I used a gel pen and did dots on the black line around the poof and around the like forehead portion of it, and then put glitter on top of my heart. So I apologize that that footage is missing. It kind of is what it is. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful Valentine's Day, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.